Now, Jamal, I'm amazed reading this. It says that you describe yourself as an at-risk youth. I can't. I've been one of those before. Before you plugged into the Baltimore Algebra Project, now you're a college graduate and a national leader in this space. I can't tell you how proud that makes me. How have your past experience shaped the leader that you want to become and have become so far?
I guess we go back to the beginning, right? So with this at-risk youth piece, right? When I was coming through high school early on, I got into one of the nicer schools in the city, but I was always from the trenches, right? We talking about like southeast Baltimore. I'm from Carolina Street, East Baltimore. Just plug that real quick. You know what I'm saying? And so like my day-to-day was hitting in packs. You know what I'm saying? I had my own corner. I had a couple people behind me. Like I had a team. And the thing about that though is like the police, they don't like that. And so they spent a good deal of time bothering me as I tried to become an entrepreneur, right? And so one of the things that ended up happening was I kept getting brought home by the police, and eventually my mother put two and two together because I stopped asking her for stuff. But it's also because I had 4 younger siblings, right? So I was trying to provide for me so that she didn't have to. But eventually she figured it out and she was like, well, you got 1 or 2 options. Either you stop selling these drugs or you go to live in Toronto. And my first thought was, that's a whole nother country. And so I was like, all right, well, I can't do that no more because the alternative to that was like, either leave and leave my brothers and my mother behind, and then also I don't have a market in Toronto. So it became like, all right, I gotta find something else to do. I need something else to do so I can make some money, right? And so eventually it turned into me and my brothers bumping into this organization, the Baltimore Algebra Project, because what they were doing was hiring people at $10 an hour to teach math in your high school. So I was like, oh, dope, that's $10 an hour, that's double figures, and I did my math, and I was like, all right, cool. And plus I was always pretty good at math, not only like arithmetic, but actual math. Plug, Algebra 2 and geometry are really the same thing. For all my non-math people. But yeah, so, and the thing about the Algebra Project, for people who don't know, right, it's an organization that comes directly from the Civil Rights Movement. Like its founder was a field secretary from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. His name is Bob Moses. If you get a chance, look him up. My man is mad dope, right? And essentially, it takes the lens from the civil rights movement to citizenship and applies it to now. So back then in the 60s, the question was like, if you are gonna be a citizen, you need to be able to vote. Well, moving past the 60s, right, it changed from being able to vote to being able to do math and science. And so it was like, all right, cool, let's create this organization that's gonna, intentionally go into low-income communities and teach poor black kids math, because that's how we make sure that they have full access to life in this economy and in this country. And so I started to go work with the Algebra Project and do that. So now I'm making my money, I'm teaching my math, and I'm like getting a little bit of rep from math in my school. I was always like known for basketball before that. I tore my ACL also, sidebar. And interestingly enough, we had a conversation because at some point the math money disappeared. Folks were like, yeah, you can't teach math anymore, or you can do it, but you have to do it volunteer. And I came here for money, I ain't staying for none. And so it was like, well, what happened? It was like, well, the money for the math teaching has to come from the school system. The school system lost money, and so now we don't have any money for that. So then there's like this political analysis about like math being like key and like where the like civil rights movement came from. A lot of it was like, all right, we have to organize against the school district or against the state to get this money back just so that I can have my job, right? I need to be able to feed myself because I can't go back out there. And so we like organized against the state, and we sent this lawsuit against them. It was mad dope. It was a whole lot of stuff. It was a whole lot of real late meetings in basements of churches. It was interesting, and it was real cool. Eventually, that turned into like me sticking around, staying with the organization. So like I started off as a tutor, I turned into one of the organizers, working on different stuff, like had to do all of these trainings, I went through all of these like different workshops, I got to travel and do a bunch of different stuff, and really acquired the skills that they like got me here, except getting past Secret Service. And so when I got like to this role, now I'm currently the executive director of the organization, and so so now, like, my job isn't just being a director, but also being able to, like, pass this on and pass on those same skills to the younger folks so that I can transition out and they can take my role as executive director soon. And so that, like, was real central. And like, just some of the organizing that we did on the local level and on the state level led us to look at the national landscape. And like, we started working with an organization called the Alliance for Educational Justice, which is like a national network that we're in. And that network is a part of this National Youth Alliance that I'm here representing today. And the National Youth Alliance is like a network of 5 different networks that represents hundreds and thousands of youth organizers across the country working on issues of boys and men of color everywhere. And so, like, the unique thing about the NYA, National Youth Alliance, by the way, is that it does 2 things, right? It makes sure with an intentional, like, with some intent to be able to get boys and men of color to platforms like this and into these rooms and at these panels and access to you guys. But the other thing is, like, there's an intentional investment into, like, organizing campaigns that happen all over the country on issues that affect boys and men of color's, like, material conditions day to day, and that's, like, real central to me. And so, like, one of the things that I've noticed, like, through my story and through the work that I've done is that, like, having a mentor has always been, like, really important. And to make that, to like, extend from that, organizing is the other piece to this, right? For the Algebra Project, this provide direct service by teaching math, but also protect the service by doing organizing. So, like, provide the mentorship and the guidance, but also have the organizing to be the backbone for when that structure doesn't work.
I didn't get a chance to meet. What you know, it's funny. I got here late. Imagine a comedian being late. That never happens. But it's so ironic that your story sounds like mine, and I'm 30 years older than you, and you live in a different part of the country, and you did a different thing. Is that us, or is that the way people see us? I think so. I've never done an algebra problem. I'm crying not because I'm sad, because you guys are so much better than people think you are. And I wish it makes me sad that I see a man 30 years later who went through the exact same thing. And without luck or fortune, you be gone. And people take that as this, if it's the way it ought to be, and it shouldn't. We should be ashamed to have that happen. You should be the rule and not the exception. And that is society's shame. You're a bright, strong man. And more than anything else, when society says we don't see color, then how come they so good at calling the police and describing it? I'll say this, that I couldn't be prouder. I don't know you, but I've seen you, all of you. And I think that one thing all of you should know is that there are so many more like this, so many more. And that when you see, it shouldn't be shocking to see this. It should be commonplace. And if it's not, it is our fault. These are our children. They're not my children. They're the nations of America. You're the best we have. And I appreciate you telling your story. And I'm just sad that I'll hear it again.
And I appreciate you for Kings of Comedy.
Thank you to Luis Ramirez. Give him a big round of applause, Mr. Ramirez. Thank you to Frank Cobb. Thank you to Devin Edwards. Thank you to Jamal Jones. I'm sorry I was late, and thank you all for coming. We appreciate that. Thank you all very much.